Hello dear students, I Kamal Sharma welcome you to this wonderful platform of Physics Wala. Today we are going to be starting the term 1 syllabus of chemistry with a very important chapter, solid state. The chapter which is all about the structure of solid, the properties of solid and how a solid can be identified, characterized and what properties a solid can show. So let's start the chapter. So first we are going to be covering these topics in this chapter. What is a crystalline and amorphous solid? What are the terms related to solid and what are the crystal system, how a crystal can be categorized? Then we will be discussing about packing efficiency, rank, formulae of solid, how can we find the formulae of solid, how can we find the density of solid, and then we go on to finding the defect present in a solid. Some solids have some abnormalities that we will discuss about. After that, the properties of solid will be studied, which are magnetic and electrical properties. So these are the basic structure of this chapter, the basic fundamental structure of this chapter that we are going to study in today's class. So let's move ahead. First of all, solids are in general. If I talk in general, then solids are those states of matter which have a very tightly packed structure. Atoms or the particles that are constituent of the solid, they are very tightly and very closely attached in a crystal system or in an amorphous solid. These particles have very high intermolecular forces. These particles have very less space in between them. They have very less mobility due to tight packing and other things. Solids are very rigid. Generally, we cannot compress them easily. These are general properties of solid. Now, if we look, we can divide the solid into two properties. One is crystalline solid and another is amorphous solid on the basis of structure, how a solid is being structured or formed. So if we talk about the crystalline solid, the word crystalline suggests itself that the solid is having a perfect or a regular long-ranged order. If a solid has a regular long-range order or pattern, then those solids are called as crystalline solid. If we see here, suppose we have a solid of a bigger and smaller atoms, then in crystalline solid, those will be having a definite pattern for a very long range. If I arrange the particle in alternate manner, then whole solid or a very long portion of solid will have this alternate pattern. Whereas in amorphous solid, the pattern will be random or short range. It could be something like this, a total random pattern. Somewhere we will get excess of bigger particle, somewhere we will get excess of smaller particles. So this is having a very random pattern. Now the next thing, if we see, solids of crystalline nature shows anisotropy, while solid of amorphous nature show isotropy. Now what is this isotropy and anisotropy? So students, iso means same and tropy means direction. Now this is very easy to learn. Tropical, we used word for directions. So iso means same and tropy means direction. So those solids which have same properties, identical physical properties like refractive index, tensile strength, other properties, all properties same in different direction. In all the direction they are having those properties as same. Those solids will show isotropy. And if the solid is having different properties in different direction, then those solids will be having anisotropy. Now if we look here, then this crystalline solid has regular pattern, correct. This is having a regular pattern, that is correct. But the pattern is different in different direction. If I mention these three directions, then in the horizontal direction, the pattern is alternate bigger and smaller particles. If I go into this direction, then the pattern is of smaller particles. If I go into this direction, then the pattern is of bigger particle. So although crystalline solids have same regular long range pattern, but the pattern differs in various direction. Now if the pattern is different in various direction, then it might be possible that these particles show a lesser strength, a lesser tensile strength, while these particles show a greater tensile strength. So due to different pattern in different direction, a crystalline solid show anisotropy. This is having an isotropic nature. different properties in different direction. While in amorphous solid, if we talk about, here the pattern is random, here also the pattern is random, here also the pattern is random. The pattern is random in every possible direction. And we can assume the randomness to be same because it is a very long structure. So we can assume the randomness to be same. In that scenario, the randomness is same. So properties will also become similar. And that's why amorphous solids show isotropy. Same properties in all the various different direction. That's why we have said that crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature, while amorphous solids are isotropic in nature. The third property is crystalline solids show cleavage property. Cleavage means cleave, to cut or to separate the portions. So if we cut a crystalline solid through a very sharp tool, like a sharp knife or sharp saw, then the portion cutted or the new surface generated will be smooth. And this is called as cleavage property. So crystalline solids, due to their structure, show cleavage properties. That means when they would be cut by a sharp tool, the produced surface will be smooth. While in amorphous solid, the cleavage properties will be absent because due to their random pattern, when we cut them with a sharp tool, the surface produced will be quite rough. And that's why they do not show cleavage properties. Crystalline solid have sharp melting and boiling point, while amorphous solid have ranged melting and boiling point. That means if we melt or boil a crystalline solid, the melting starts and ends at the same temperature. The sharp means that at the same temperature, for example, 20.1 degrees Celsius, then the melting will start at 20.1 degrees Celsius and the melting will complete also at 20.1 degrees Celsius. Only after completing the melting, the process will raise the temperature. So for crystalline solid, the melting and boiling occurs at sharp temperature at a single value of temperature. Melting point will be different and the boiling point will be different, but the temperature value will be sharp. But in amorphous solid, the melting point and boiling point will be ranged. The melting will start at some temperature T1, but when the melting will be finished, the temperature will become T2, and so for the boiling point. That's why, because they are showing, amorphous solids are showing not very much properties of crystals, that's why they are called as pseudo solid. They are not perfect solid, they are called as pseudo solids. Some example of crystalline solid we have already seen: rock salt, the common salt that we use, NaCl, zinc blende, ZnS, or we can have fluorite, calcium, F2, CaF2, and other examples. And the amorphous solid, the most common example of amorphous solid is our glass. Glass is a supercooled liquid or pseudo solid, which is a mixture of various components in a random pattern, or rubber and plastic. Now let's move ahead. If we talk about a crystalline solid, now the whole chapter is all about crystalline solid and their structures. So if we talk about crystalline solid, we have some terms to define them. The first term is unit cell. As the pattern is quite regular, so we can define a smallest portion which will be repeated for every interval. So the unit cell is that smallest unit which, when repeated in various directions, unit cell is replicated into various directions in all the possible direction in order to give a crystal lattice. A complete solid lattice is called as crystal lattice. So the smallest repetitive or fundamental block of a crystal solid is defined as a unit cell. For example, if we have a cubic lattice means a lattice for which the structure is in a cubic shape, and when this cube is replicated into every other direction, it will produce the complete structure of solid, which will be called as space lattice or crystal lattice. Now this unit cell will be characterized through different parameters. 3 parameters are edge parameters, which are A, B, and C. 3 parameters are angle parameters, which are alpha, beta, and gamma. So we have a total of 6 parameters to characterize a unit cell, which are A, B, C, alpha, beta, and gamma. Why these 3 parameters? We have 3 directions to measure the length, to measure the length of the solid. The length in these three directions are characterized by the values A, B, and C. These three directions lengths are mentioned or represented by the three parameters A, B, and C, and angle are in between these three directions. For cubic, the angle is 90 degree obviously, but for other crystal system, it could be less than 90 or greater than 90. So this angle, let me draw here, A, B, and C. Let us assume these are the three directions for a unit cell. Then the angle opposite to A, that is the angle between B and C, is defined as alpha. The angle opposite to B, that is the angle between A and C, is defined as beta. And the angle opposite to C, that is the angle between A and B, is defined as gamma. So these three, length and the angle between these three lengths, are used to characterize a unit cell. And on the basis of these angles, we have classified the crystalline solid into 7 different systems. What are those systems? So now students, observe here carefully that we can memorize this very 7 crystal system because these are asked in the questions, are asked in the competitive as well as board exam. So we have to memorize this, and there's a trick to memorize this. Let's see what is the trick. First we will learn the name in the order. So the order is C-tall HMT. We can remember it very easily. C-tall HMT. Now this C represent a solid with a cubic unit cell. This T represent tetragonal unit cell. This O represent orthorhombic unit cell. This R represent rhombohedral or triclinic unit cell, trigonal unit cell. This H represent hexagonal unit cell. This M represent monoclinic unit cell, and this T represent triclinic unit cell. Triclinic unit cell. Now what are these cells? So these cells are characterized with the 6 parameters A, B, C, alpha, beta, gamma. So for first cubic, we know that A is equal to B is equal to C. We all know the cube is a very structured pattern of having equal length, equal edges in all the direction. So A, B, and C, all the lengths are equal. We can characterize this only by A. We can assume all to be equal to a new symbol A. Now the trick here is we have to make one length not equal to in our order. So for first tetragonal, A, B, C equal, but this will become not equal to sign. Again for orthorhombic, we will increase. In the edge parameters, we have to increase one not equal to sign while going down. In this order, C-tall, HMT, we will increase one not equal to sign for each step down. So this was already not equal to, and this will become not equal to. So these are the first 3 cells. The same pattern will be repeated again. A, B, C all are equal. Then we will be having A is equal to B is not is equal to C. Then we will be having A is not is equal to B is not is equal to C. So first this 6 we have to learn. Then we will see for the 7th one. Now for alpha, beta, gamma, we know that cube have alpha, beta, gamma is equal to 90 degree. We all know that cube is a perpendicular system of 3D space in which all the directions are at 90 degree. And these 3's are same. For angle, we have to learn that all the first 3 have same angle parameters. Alpha, beta, gamma all are equal to 90. So you can visualize this as well, that cube is a solid in which all the lengths are equal. Now if I pull a face of cube in one direction, if I pull a face in one direction, then one length will be changed. That has become tetragonal, in which I have pulled the face in one direction while not changing the angles. Now if I pull another face in another direction, then all the length will become not equal to. That has become orthorhombic, which we call in maths as cuboid. So first cube, all the lengths equal, then tetragonal, and then orthorhombic. So these are the first 3 unit cell of a crystal system. Now we have to do the same thing which we have done in the edge. One not equal to sign increased in every step, but the previous sign will be removed. Here the previous sign was carried forward, but here the previous sign will be removed. How? Let's see it. Alpha, beta, gamma is equal to 90, but this will become not equal to. Alpha, beta, gamma, 90. Now this not equal to sign is removed and this will become not is equal to. Alpha, beta, gamma is equal to 90 and this will become not equal to beta. And the symbol in front of which not equal to sign is there, it will be taken out. So this will become alpha, beta, 90, but gamma is not 90 because gamma is 120 in hexagonal cell. Similarly here, this beta will be taken out. So alpha, gamma is equal to 90, but beta is not is equal to 90. So the angle in front of which we have put the not equal to sign will be separated from rest of the term. So this is the trick to learn all this 6 crystal system units lattice. And for triclinic we can learn, this is the most random crystal. Although the crystal are very regular, but this is the most random. This is having all the values at not equal to. That means A not equal to B not equal to C, alpha not equal to beta not is equal to gamma, not is equal to 90 degree. All the angle and H parameters will be unequal or different. So these are our 7 crystal systems in which a crystalline solid can be characterized. Now let's move ahead. So we have a packing. Packing means now we have created a space. We are talking about the space and now we will be putting the atom, the solid atom in that space. So if we put the atom, then there can be various arrangement to put atom in those spaces, and that arrangement are called as packing. So packing means how atoms of solid are arranged in the unit cell. So we have a simple packing. We have a simple packing. The most simplest packing in which the atoms are arranged only in corners. The atoms are present only in corners. Because without corner, the structure cannot be formed. If we have to make a triangle, then first we have to put 3 atoms in a triangle vertices. One here, one here, one here. So first we have to put the atoms at corner, and the simple cell atoms are only at corner. Or next, the packings are called as centered packing, like face centered, body centered, and end centered. These are 3 centered packing. And in this centered packing, corner is compulsory because without corner the structure cannot be formed. So in all these packing, atoms will be present at corners. And in addition to corners, for face centered, the atoms will also be at centers of all faces. So that's why these packings are called as centered packing, because in these packings, atoms are at corners and in addition to corners, some centers like face center. For body center, the atom will be present at the center of body. And for end centered, the atoms will be present at any 2 opposite face center. Any 2 opposite face center. That means for simple, we have atoms only at corners, all the corners of unit cell. For FCC, face centered, we will be having corner atom plus atoms at all the faces that we can design here. For BC, body centered, we will be having atoms at the center of body along with the corner. And for end centered, we can have any 2 opposite faces like upper and bottom face, front and back face, left and right face. We can have atoms at any of these 2 opposite face center. Now these are the 4 type of packing, and these are the 7 crystal system. So in these 7 crystal systems, we can have various different packing. So the packing here are, if we see, For simple cubic or simple packing, corner atoms are compulsory for all the packing. So simple packing is present in all these 7 systems. First we will learn how can we remember all these packing. So simple packing is present in all of these crystal system, and this simple packing is also called as primitive, the most basic packing. Now the second thing that we have to learn is only a orthorhombic. The most cuboid crystal system is the system in which all the 4 packing are present, that is simple, face centered, body centered as well as end centered. Simple, face centered, body centered as well as end centered. And for cube we will be discussing in whole of the chapter. The cube is discussed in whole of the chapter. So for cube it will be learned very easily that cube has only 3 packing: simple, face centered and body centered. Now if the question arises why cube cannot have end centered? Because cube is a symmetrical system. If we put 2 atoms on 2 opposite face, let's say upper and lower face, then the probability of atom having present there is similar to atom present there, because all the faces are identical. So if 2 atoms can go on upper and bottom face, then the 2 atoms can also go on left and right face. The 2 atoms can also go on front and back face. So if ever a cube tries to form a end-centered packing, it automatically becomes face-centered. Instead of getting atoms at 2 faces, the cube gets atom at all the 6 faces. So that's why end-centered is not possible in a cube. So these are the 12 packing. Now we have to remember only one thing more, that tetragonal has a body-centered packing as well, and monoclinic has end-centered packing as well. Now if we count all these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have a total of 14 type of packing available in these 7 type of system. And these 14 type of packing are called as Bravais lattice. These are called as Bravais lattice. So overall we say that any crystalline solid is having 7 various crystal system, and in that 7 various crystal system there are 14 Bravais lattice possible. So now we see the radius relation for PCC, BCC and FCC. PCC means primitive cubic packing. BCC means body centered cubic packing, and FCC means face centered cubic packing. So one by one we will discussing all these 3. The radius relation is very important in order to derive the further theories. So beta, if we see here, first of all we assume a closed packing approximation. Closed packing means all the nearest neighbor, all the atoms which are nearest, which have minimum separation, will be in contact. Those atoms will be touching each other. So in the approximation of these closed packing, we assume solid to be tightly packed or closely packed. 2 atoms which are closest to each other, they will be having 0 separation. We assume the separation to be 0 in simple words. So if we assume this closed packing, this is a PCC packing in which atoms are present in the corners. Now if the edge length of cube is A, then these 2 atoms, if I mark these 2 atoms or any 2 atoms present in the nearing corner, these are having the minimum separation. So we can assume these 2 be in contact with each other. So the PCC structure will be something like this. Atoms are at the corner and the corner atoms are in contact. So if I mention the length here, this length is A, edge length, and this length is radius in terms of a sphere, and this is also radius if all the atoms are similar. So clearly here we can see R plus R is equivalent to A. So for PCC the relation is twice of R is equal to A, edge length A. These relation can be used if we know about the cell. If we know about the edge length of cubic cell, then we can identify the radius of the constituent atom, or vice versa. If we know about the radius of constituent atom, we can identify the edge length of cell. So these radius relations are used in order to find a relation between radiuses and edge length of the solid. Now if we see for BCC, in BCC lattice, we have atom at the corners. We have atoms at the corners, as well as one more atom will be present at the center of body, which will be something like here. So we are having 8 corner atoms, 4 here, and one atom is present at the center of these 8 atoms, at the body center. So now if we see these atoms, this is the body diagonal. Let's draw the body diagonal separately. If this is the body diagonal, this is a corner atom. One atom is at the body center, and another atom is at another corner. So from corner to corner, the body length of cube is root 3a. You can remember, or you can find this by Pythagoras theorem, that for cube, if edge length is a, face diagonal will be under root 2a and body diagonal will be under root 3a. And we can mark this distance as well as r. This will be 2r diameter, and this will again be radius. So clearly from here, r plus 2r plus r is equal to body diagonal, because these all corner atoms are touching this body center atom. This is the nearest neighbor of any corner atom. So we can see from here, 4 times of r is equal to under root 3 times of a, body diagonal. So this is the radius relation for BCC, body centered cubic lattice. And for FCC, the atoms will be at corners. Always remember this beta, that face center is different and face centered packing is different. If a question says face center, then we will assume atom to be present only at center of faces. But if the question says face centered packing, then the atoms will be at corner as well as center of faces. So face center has a slightly different meaning from face centered packing. In this packing, the atoms will be at center of each faces, top, left, bottom, right, back and front. Now we can see these 2 atoms are the nearest neighbor. So any corner atom has a nearest neighbor of face center, of center of face. So if we draw a face diagonal separately, a corner atom is here, and one more atom is present at the center, and all these atoms are touching each other. Now this length will be face diagonal of a cube, which will be under root 2a, and this is r, radius, this is twice of r, diameter, and this is r. So we can see from here, 4 times of r for FCC, 4 times of r is equal to length of face diagonal. So you can remember it in a statement as well. For PCC, twice of r is edge length. For BCC, 4 times of r is body diagonal length. And for FCC, 4 times of r is equal to face diagonal length. So these are the 3 radius relations for all these 3 different packing. Remember this, FCC, BCC and PCC. These are only 3 methods of arranging the atom in a cube. So this is a different cubic cell, this is a different cubic cell, and FCC is a different cubic cell. Now if we see one more thing, which is called as rank. Now what is rank? Basically it means we have a cube and all the atoms are spherical. So in a cube, if I put an atom, spherical atom at one corner, will this atom will be inside completely the cube? Or some portion of atom would be inside the cube and some portion of the atom would be outside the cube. So by rank or effective number of atom, we mean that how much part of an atom is actually present in the unit cell. Because we are discussing only about the unit cell. If a unit cell has 1/4 of the atom, then the atom is contributing only 1/4. Rest atom is contributing in some other unit cell. So we study only unit cell. So we have to check how much part of atom is inside that unit cell, and that is called as rank. Now if we see, we have atom at corner, we have atom at face center, we have atom at edge center, center of edges, and we have atom at body center. So let's see the contribution. Contribution. So if we see, for a cube, any atom which is at center of body, if some atom is present inside this room at center, we hang an atom from here, then this atom will be completely inside this cube. None of this portion, atom's portion, will be visible outside from this room. So an atom which is at body center is 100% present inside the cube. So the contribution is 1 or 100%, complete contribution. Now if I take this atom and shift it to a face center, suppose I make a big hole in this screen, not feasible, but if I make a big hole in this screen and put a spherical iron shell in this hole, then this spherical shell is visible from this room and the room behind this room. So I can say that this atom is present in 2 unit cell. So in per unit cell, the contribution will become half, 1 by 2, the contribution of face center atom. Now if I take this atom and bring this to the center, the edge center of the cube of this room, then this edge center atom, something like here, this can be seen from 4 cube. 1 cube this, 1 ahead of this, 1 right side of this, and 1 behind of this. 1 cube here, 1 cube here, and 1 cube here. From all these 4 rooms, this end centered atom can be seen. So the contribution of edge center is 1 by 4. You can see from body center to corner, the contribution are getting half each time. And the corner atom is visible from 8 cube. 4 cube in the bottom and 4 cube above them. So the contribution of corner atom is 1 by 8. You can simply remember it by remembering that body center, face center, edge center and corner, the contribution will get half every time. 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 4 and 1 by 8. So if I see for PCC, atoms are at corner. For BCC, body centered cube, atoms are at corner and atom is present at the center of body. For FCC, face centered cube, atoms are at corner and center of each faces, one back center and one front center from white color. Now if we see for total number of atoms in the cube Z of this cube, so we are having 8 atoms, sorry, one this is missing. We are having 8 atoms each at one corner. So total 8 atoms are there and the contribution of each atom is 1 by 8. So clearly we can say that by combining all these smaller portion, we will get a complete 1 atom inside this unit cell of PCC. So the rank or effective number of atoms in a PCC unit cell is 1. The rank or effective number of atoms in a PCC unit cell is 1. Now for BCC, we are having 2 different type of atom. 8 atoms are at corner, these are lattice points, and 1 atom is at body center, the body center lattice point. The contribution of corner atom is 1 by 8 for each atom, and the contribution of body center is 1. So the effective number of atom will be 2. So the rank for BCC lattice is 2. And for FCC lattice, we are again having 2 type of atom, 8 atom at corner and 6 atom at face center. The corner atom will have a contribution of 1 by 8 each atom, and face center will have 1 by 2 contribution for each atom. So the rank for FCC is 4. So as you can see, the effective number of atom in PCC is 1. Effective means a total summation of all the smaller portion. For PCC it is 1. For BCC it is 2. While for FCC it is 4. So we are having these rank for these 3 crystal system. Now till now we know about the radius relation, we know about the rank of unit cell. What other parameters we can know about? Let's first see this question. A compound formed by X and Y in a cubic lattice with X atom at each corners and Y atoms at face center. Formula of solid is. So these type of questions are done with the help of rank. With the help of rank. How? Let's see here. The better version is to visualize the solid or draw the proper diagram. It will help in better understanding always. Always remember, for solid state chapter, imagination and visualization is very, very crucial. The more you imagine, the more you visualize the solid around you, the more you feel you are sitting inside a unit cell, the easier the chapter will get. So the imagination and visualization is very important. So the question is saying the X atom is at corner. So we are having X atom at each corner. It is not saying corner centered or face centered, only corner. So we have X atom at each of the corner. And again it says Y atom at face center. Now attention here that face center is written, not face centered. So face centers means, as I was telling earlier, that atoms will be only at center of faces. So Y atoms are present at all the 6 spaces center. And now the question is asking about the formula of solid. So now we can see the formula means the empirical or simplest ratio formula. So first we will find the rank for X atom. X atom are present 8 at the corners, all the corners, and the contribution of each corner atom is 1 by 8. So effectively I can say that only one total atom of X is present in this unit cell. Similarly for Y, the rank will be 6 Y atom at face center and the contribution of each center is 1 by 2. So effectively I am having total 3 Y atoms at each unit cell. So the ratio will be X1 Y3 and the formula of solid will become XY3, the simplest ratio formula. So for this question, B, XY3 would be the formula of solid. So that's how we do a question of rank. Now let's see another question which is based on the radius relation. The question says a metal crystallizes with a face centered unit cell. The edge length is 408. The diameter of metal atom is. So if I see from here, it is given face centered unit cell. Now if I remember the radius relation exactly, I can do this question in quite few seconds. For face centered, I have told you the 4 times of radius is equal to length of face diagonal. Length of face diagonal. For face centered, length of face diagonal. For body center, length of body diagonal. Now we have to find this diameter. So diameter means we have to find twice of r. So this can be written 2 times of twice of r is equal to under root 2 into edge length. The edge length is given as 408 picometer. So from here the diameter will come out to be under root 2 into 408 divided by 2. Solving this will give approximate diameter to be 288 picometer. 288 picometer. Option A. So that's how we do the question of rank and the question based on radius relation. If I know the relation between radius and edge length, I can do the calculation very easily. If I don't know the relation, then I can find the relation. You also know how to find the relation between radius and edge length by using the closed packing approximation. Now let's talk about the packing efficiency. Now what is efficiency? Efficiency means simply we have a vacant space, we have a blank space, all the cube is vacant and we are putting something inside this. We are putting some atom inside those cube. Now atom is spherical. It is quite sure that we cannot fill all of the empty space. If I say you that you have so many balloons and you have to fill this complete room with balloons, there will be some space left in between the balloon. It is not possible to completely fill the room with 100% occupancy. And that is happening in the solid as well. So that's why we calculate the packing efficiency. How efficient, how much space we are taking or occupying among the given space. So as I have told just now, packing efficiency is basically how much space is occupied. Space occupied divided by how much space is available. How much space is available. And for efficiency, if we take in percent, then I will multiply by 100. And for fraction, the 100 terms will be omitted. The 100 term will be omitted. Now I can make a formula here. The space is occupied by a sphere. If I have z number of a sphere and the volume of each sphere will be 4 by 3 pi r cube, correct? So the total volume occupied will be z into 4 by 3 pi r cube, and I am having a cube. So the total volume available is a cube. All the calculation are done for the unit cell, because if I know about the unit cell, it is only giving the crystal lattice by replicating itself. So I have to find the packing efficiency only for unit cell. Now we have already calculated all these three things. If I see in PCC, BCC and FCC. PCC, BCC and FCC. So for PCC, the Z is 1, effective 1 atom, 4 by 3 pi. The PCC relation is twice of R is equal to A. So R can be written as A by 2 whole cube divided by A cube. So A cube will be cancelled out. And on solving this, we will get 52.4%. This is the packing efficiency of PCC. I have just used the Z and the radius relation to cancel out R and A. Now for BCC, effective rank is 2. Effectively 2 atoms are there. 4 by 3 pi. For BCC, the relation is 4R is equal to under root 3A, body diagonal. So R can be written as under root 3A by 4 whole cube divided by A cube. Again, A will be cancelled out. And on solving this, I will get 68%, approximately 68%. Similarly, for FCC, the packing efficiency will be Z, which is 4, rank 4 by 3 pi. For FCC, the relation is 4R is equal to under root 2A. So I can see from here under root 2A by 4 whole cube. The value of R I have taken from this radius relation divided by A cube. Again, A will be cancelled out, and on solving this, I will get 76%. So you can see from here that in PCC, we have already arranged less atom. Only one atom was there in the unit cell. So if obviously the space is not efficiently occupied. So for PCC, the packing efficiency is least. Almost 52% space, or we can say almost half of the space is full, while other half is empty. Almost, approximately. Exact is 52.4. For BCC, almost 70% is occupied, 68%. And remaining 30% or 32% approximately is empty or unoccupied. And for FCC, almost 3/4 space is occupied, while 1/4 space is empty. So you can see that FCC is the most efficient packing. FCC is the most efficient packing. And that's why FCC is also called as, only FCC is also called as cubic closed packing. This is the most efficient cube. I can say this, FCC is the most efficient cube. That's why it is called as cubic closed packing. So if a question mention about CCP, cubic closed packing, then it is mentioning about FCC unit cell. So this is the packing efficiency of all these three cubic unit cell. For PCC, it is 52.4%. Let's just mention the values. For BCC, it is 68%. And for FCC, it is 76%. The packing efficiency. Now let's talk about density. Density of solid. As we know, already know, solid are quite dense. So for density also, we only find density of unit cell, because density is an intensive property. The unit cell density will be same as that of complete solid. So this is mass of unit cell, mass of unit cell divided by volume of unit cell. The general formula for density, mass per unit volume. Now the mass of unit cell is because of the atom, and the volume of unit cell is because of the cubic lattice. So I can say that if Z atom are there, M is the molar mass, then M upon Avogadro number will be mass of one atom. M is the molar mass, that is mass of Avogadro number of atom. Then mass of one atom will be M upon Avogadro number. And if Z atom are there, then the total mass will be Z into mass of one atom divided by volume of the unit cell. Divided by volume of the unit cell. The density of solid will come out to be Z M upon Na A cube. Z M upon Na A cube. Now usually beta here, I take M molar mass, which is in gram per mole. So usually I take edge length A in centimeter. So this becomes centimeter cube. Avogadro number is in mole inverse. And overall the density comes out in gram per centimeter cube. Always remember to look for the unit of density that you are finding. Usually the molar mass is in gram. So I take the edge length in centimeter, and then only the density will come in gram per centimeter cube. If somehow, somewhere the question asks in kilogram per meter cube, then we have to do proper conversion of units. But most of the time the question is asked in gram per centimeter cube. Now let's see the question. The question says CSBr crystallizes in a BCC lattice with unit cell length 436.6. If atomic mass of cesium 133 and bromine 80 AMU, density of solid is. So here also we have to calculate the density in gram per centimeter cube. So let's solve the question. Density of solid we have to find, which is Z M upon Na into A cube. Now this is a previous year question, and this has a little trick. The lattice is BCC, no doubt, and for BCC the rank is 2. But the molecule or the lattice is formed with two different atoms, cesium and bromine, and the formula is CSBr 1:1, cesium bromide. So if I take Z is equal to 2, then this represents two particles, one of cesium and one of bromine inside the unit cell. So the rank is not taken here as 2 completely, although the rank is 1 for cesium and 1 for bromine. The combined rank is 2, but the independent rank is 1 for cesium and 1 for bromine. And we are taking the mass of cesium and bromine combinedly. The cesium is having 133 and the bromine is having 80. So the total mass is 213 AMU, that is per molecule. And the same mass will become 213 gram per mole, the molar mass. So if I am taking the molar mass of complete CSBr unit, then I can say that in this solid, only one CSBr complete unit is present. So the effective rank is not taken as 2, but the rank will be taken as 1 for cesium bromine complete molecule. Cesium bromine complete molecule. So I solve from here, Z will be 1. This is the trick in the question. That usually for Z, the BCC, for Z, BCC is 2. But here the Z is 1. The molar mass is 213. Avogadro number is 6.022 into 10 to the power 23 into the edge length will be in picometer, which is 436.6. 436.6 multiplied by 10 to the power minus 10 centimeter in order to convert picometer into centimeter. So this will become 436.6 into 10 to the power minus 10. And on solving this, we will be getting the density as 4.25 gram per centimeter cube. We have to do some calculation here. Some approximation can be done. 436 can be taken as 440. 6.022 can be taken as 6. And 213 can be taken as 210 because the answers are quite far. This is 4.25, this is 42.5, this is 0.425 and this is 8.25. So little bit approximation can be done for this MCQ. Without approximation, the MCQ of density will be very lengthy and it will be very time consuming to solve it completely. So some approximation in calculation are also required here. For this, 4.25 gram per centimeter cube. Now let's talk about coordination number. What is the coordination number? What do you mean by coordination? Means we have to connect with someone, coordinate with someone, like we use in daily life. Coordinate. So coordination number is the same thing. If an atom is present here, it will be having some atom nearest neighbor, some atom far away, some atom further far away. So the most important coordination or interaction or attraction of this atom will be the close vicinity. All the atoms which are in closed vicinity, this atom will be having the most prominent coordination or interaction with this surrounding atom. So the number of nearest neighbors, close constituent of a constituent particle of solid is defined as coordination number. And we have to remember this thing that for PCC, the coordination number is 6. For BCC, the coordination number is 8, and for FCC, the coordination number is 12. One more thing to remember from here is that as the coordination number increases, packing efficiency also increases. Why? Because if more atoms are in close vicinity, more atoms are in contact, then the cube will be having least spaces, less space, less empty spaces, and that will become the efficient packing. So we already know FCC is the most efficient packing and FCC is having the highest coordination number. Also, coordination number due to symmetry is most of the time even because the cube is symmetrical. So the coordination number here is all even. If I try to make it visual for PCC, if I take this corner, we can see this corner, and this corner. These three corners are in its close vicinity. That means it can touch one atom here, one atom here, one atom here. And now this edge is repeated infinitely. The solid is complete structure, the complete infinite structure. So this edge will be going back as well. There will be one atom in the back as well. It is similar to this condition. One atom back here and one atom above here. So similar to these three atoms, this corner is touching these three atoms as well. So in a total, the corner atom that I have mentioned is touching 6 atoms in its neighbor. So that's why the PCC coordination number is 6. Similarly, we can see for FCC as well as BCC coordination number. It is better to memorize the result because the results are quite simpler and are directly asked. The coordination number of PCC 6, for BCC 8 and for FCC 12. Now let's talk about void. What is a void? Usually say void means empty. Void means empty. But in science or in chemistry, this is a little bit different, a little bit modified, enhanced. What is this? Suppose we have two atoms. One atom here, and there is an empty space in between these atoms. If something is trapped in this empty space, it can have two options. Either it will be trapped in from all direction, or in some direction it will be free from where it can escape out. And that is the difference between void and interstitial space. This is the difference because both are empty spaces. Many times we get confused with void and interstitial space, and this is the main difference between void and interstitial space. Any space which is open from any of the direction. Suppose we are having atoms here, above atom is missing. Now atom in that space can go from outside. So if an atom is free to go from any of the direction, that empty space is interstitial. But if the atom is completely packed from all the possible direction, then those empty spaces, those closed empty spaces are defined as void. And as we know, solid cannot be 100% occupied. The whole space is not 100% occupied. That's why study of void becomes important. Study of void becomes important. So we have a total of mainly 3 type of void found in a solid. One is tetrahedral void. Another is octahedral void. And the last one is cubic void. The last one is cubic void. Tetrahedral void is formed when 4 atoms approaches each other from tetrahedral direction. If 4 atoms approaches each other from tetrahedral direction, then at the center where some space will be vacant, that space will be tetrahedral void. Octahedral is formed when 6 atoms approaches each other from octahedral geometry. From octahedral geometry in which all the 6 bonds are perpendicular. So these are x, y, z axes. We can assume one to be x, another to be y, and another to be z axis for octahedral void. Then at the center where the space will be vacant is defined as octahedral void. And cubic, as the name suggests, when 8 atoms form a cube, when 8 atoms form a cube, then the space, the empty space which is formed at the center, then the empty space formed at the center, this empty space will be cubic void. So we have mainly 3 types of void in a solid, in a cubic solid: tetrahedral, octahedral, and cubic. Now if we talk about the position of these void, the location, the tetrahedral void is found under root 3a by 4 on each body diagonal, from each corner. So we have total of 8 corner. If we have total of 8 corner, then we will be having total of 8 under root 3a by 4 distance from each corner, 4 from above and 4 from bottom. Then we are having total 8 different location for tetrahedral void. And the position which is just below the corner is completely inside this cube. So the contribution will be 1, and I can say tetrahedral void are effectively 8 in a unit cell. And this unit cell must be FCC. This unit cell must be FCC. For octahedral void, we have 2 positions. One is at each edge center. At each edge center, 12 edge centers are there. And another is at body center. So octahedral void is formed in a FCC cell. For cube, it is formed in a FCC cell at edge center and at body center. For octahedral void, edge center are 12 and body center is 1. The contribution of edge center is 1/4 and the contribution of body center is 1. So effectively we have only 4 octahedral void in an FCC unit cell. And the cubic void is formed in PCC unit cell at body center. Remember here beta that both octahedral and cubic void or body void are formed at body center as well. But both the unit cell are different. One is of FCC unit cell and another is of PCC unit cell. So these 2 voids are found in FCC and this void is found in PCC. The voids of body centered cube are not studied here. So we see for FCC unit cell and PCC unit cell. For void or for an atom, if there is some empty space, it is possible to put some atom there. So if I put an atom in void, then the atom will also be having a coordination number. So the coordination number for each void is also fixed, which we can see from here. The coordination number will be, for tetrahedral void it will be 4 because it is formed by 4 atoms. So if I put an atom at center, then this will be surrounded by 4 atoms only. For octahedral, it will be 6. If I put an atom at here, center, then it will be surrounded by 6 atoms only. And for cubic, it will be 8. For cubic, it will be 8. Because this is surrounded by 8 atoms. So we can directly find the coordination number from the type of void the atom is present in. If I say an atom is present in octahedral void, you must remember, you must quickly understand the coordination number for octahedral void atom will be 6. If I say the atom is in cubic void, the coordination number will quickly be 8. If I say the atom is in tetrahedral void, the coordination number will be, as you have said, 4. And the last thing that we see for void is radius ratio. Each void has definite size. Each void has definite size, and that's why a particular amount of atom can be fitted in that void. As the atoms are getting arranged, so the space is limited. So there is a restriction of size of atom that can be fitted in the void. So that's why we study radius ratio. Let's say R is the radius of atom in void. Atom in void. And capital R is the radius atom forming the unit cell. Atom forming the unit cell. Yani capital R is the radius atom forming the unit cell. That means capital R atoms are forming the structure, and that's why void are created, and small r radius atom are getting trapped in those void. So the relation is small r by capital R if this range is between 0.225 to 0.414. This is the first slab of range. If the range is between 0.414 to 0.732, this is the second slab. And if the range is between 0.732 1. This is not possible that the atom present in void is bigger than the atom forming the unit cell. It is not possible that a bigger atom than the atom is forming the unit cell can be fitted into void. The void atom must be smaller, always. So as the radius ratio increases, the size of atom increases, and it is try to occupy the bigger void. So the first slab is for tetrahedral void. That means the coordination number is 4. The second slab is for octahedral void, yani ki coordination number will be 6. And the third slab is for cubic void. That means the coordination number will be 8. So these are the 3 radius ratio slab for tetrahedral, the smallest void, then octahedral, and the cubic, which is the largest void. Cubic void can also be known as body void. Cubic void can also be known as body void. Now there is imperfection, there is defect in the solid. So what are the defects? Whenever a solid crystallizes, whenever a solid is being formed, the solid is getting crystallized, the atoms are trying to attain their position, their desired position. Sometimes the process can be altered due to the external effect. Sometimes it is possible that we have speed up the process, and the atom don't get the chance to reach the place where it wanted to. And that thing create defects. That thing create imperfection. So if an atom is not present at its desired position in its desired manner, that will be called as imperfection present in the solid. And those imperfections are called defects. So we are having 2 types of imperfections mainly. One imperfection is called as point defect. Point defect. And another imperfection is called as line defect. Line defect. From the perspective of exam, this is the most important section of this chapter. Defects and electrical and magnetic properties are most asked in any given board or competitive exam. So point defects are if a defect is present only at a certain lattice point. That means the defect is not very much diffused in the solid. It is present only in certain lattice point. For example, some defect is at this lattice point, another defect is here at some place far lattice point. So the defect is quite randomly and quite limited to some lattice point only. It is not diffused out throughout the solid. So those defects are called as point defect. And if defects are present in continuation, of lattice point, that means 2, 3, 4 or 5 or 6 or so on, continuous lattice point are facing the defect. One defect is here, from here this lattice point, this lattice point, this lattice point. The defect is continuing throughout several lattice point in an row or in a column. Then those defects are called as line defect. These are more dangerous or more harmful for the structure of solid, because these are quite concentrated defects. These are present in quite continuous lattice point. So mainly we study about these point defects. Now what type of defect we have? We have point defect, and point defects are classified into 3 portions. One is called stoichiometric defect, the defect which does not change the stoichiometry. Another is called as non-stoichiometric defect. Non-stoichiometric defect, the defect which changes the stoichiometry, that means the formula of solid will be changed. And the third is called as impurities defect. Impurity defect, the defect which is due to doping or presence of some external ions or particle. Some foreign particles are present. If some foreign particles are present, then those defects will be called as impurity defect. Now we will be studying all these defects one by one. So in the stoichiometric defect, the first defect is dislocation defect. As the name itself is clear, suppose the solid is supposed to have a structure something like this. All atoms have to be arranged in a regular pattern. And if in this pattern, now look here closely, if in this pattern some of the atoms are missing from their position, that means this position is being vacant, atom from this position is missing, and this atom is dislocated to another open position due to its small size. So those defects are called as dislocation defect, where the atom is dislocated from its original position to another interstitial position. And all the interstitial positions are interconnected. I've already told you these are the open position, open empty spaces. So atom in this interstitial space can move from one position to another position. This type of defect is called as dislocation defect. And if this defect is present in an ionic solid, then the defect is known as Frankel defect. So same dislocation occurs for ion present in the void. If the ion present in the void is very, very small, then it can escape from that void and go into some smaller places known as interstitial spaces. So in case of ionic solid, this defect changes the conductivity of solid. As the ion is now free to move, so due to Frankel defect, the conductivity of solid increases. And this defect is mainly found in those ionic solid where the smaller voids are filled. Because if the atom is very small, then only it can move into interstitial space. So this defect is found in those ionic solid where the radius ratio is small. And the common example of this defect is zinc sulfide, zinc bromide, Ag silver chloride, silver bromide, mainly D-blocked transition metal compound, which are the smaller cation and can easily move from void to interstitial space. The second type of defect is vacancy defect. Vacancy is clear from the name. Suppose we have to arrange the solid in this manner, a regular pattern again of all the atoms arranged in a perfectly regular pattern. But in our universe, perfectness is not possible unless you are dedicated. Unless you are preparing with full dedication, perfectness is not possible. So if one of the atom is moved from here, that means here an empty space is created. And this remaining atom, the atom which is missing from here, is not present anywhere in the lattice. It has escaped out of the lattice. So this space is being called as vacancy. A vacancy is created. And such a defect are called as vacancy defect, in which atom is missing from its lattice point outside the lattice. The atom is outside the lattice. This is the difference between dislocation and vacancy. In dislocation, atom is missing, but it is dislocated. It is present in the lattice. In vacancy, the atom is nowhere present in the lattice. And if this defect arises in an ionic solid, then this is called as Schottky defect. This is called as Schottky defect. The same vacancy defect. The common example of this is S block salt, for example, NaCl, KCl, cesium chloride, and the most important example is AgBr. You have to remember this example, as AgBr is the solid which is showing both Schottky as well as Frankel defect. AgBr is the solid which is showing both Schottky as well as Frankel defect. If we look here, the conductivity was being raised, but because of dislocation, there is no change in the formula. So this Frankel defect is also an stoichiometric defect. Stoichiometric defect. And also, in case of Schottky defect, if cation moves away from the lattice, then anion also moves away. So for example, if one Na plus is missing, then one Cl minus will also be missing. And again, this Schottky defect will also be having undisturbed stoichiometry. This is also a stoichiometric defect. This defect does not disturb the stoichiometry or change the stoichiometry. So in case of ionic solid, we are facing two defects, Frankel and Schottky, which are both stoichiometric defects. And this does not change conductivity in a significant amount, because the ion is missing and the rest of the ions are fixed at their position. But this definitely decreases the density, because some of the mass is missing but the space is there. The space is there but some of the mass is missing. That's why density is decreased in case of such defects. Now the next defect is impurity defect. What do you mean by impurity? Suppose we have a crystal of NaCl which has a doping impurity of SrCl2, strontium chloride. Now Na plus and strontium is a divalent cation. Na is a monovalent while strontium is a divalent cation. So if I form this lattice of Na, Cl, Na, cation and Cl, Na and Cl, and so on, if I keep on forming the lattice, first let's form the lattice. So if I form a lattice like this of NaCl, a pure NaCl lattice. Now if somehow this NaCl was having impurity of strontium chloride, that means the anion is same chlorine, but some of the Na plus are replaced by strontium side. As you can see, strontium is a divalent cation. So if two Na plus are replaced from their lattice site, then only one of these lattice site will have strontium ion, because it can balance the charge. Always remember, no defect can unbalance the neutrality. The solid must remain electrically neutral. So in order to balance the neutrality, when two Na plus ion are missing, then only one strontium 2 plus ion is coming. And that's why this is creating a vacancy. This is again creating vacancy. So such type of defect in which a vacancy is created, a empty space, a open site is created due to presence of foreign impurities. Such a defect are called as impurity defect. For this defect, you have to look for each time that suppose Na plus is being replaced by a trivalent cation, aluminum cation. Then aluminum will replace 3 sodium ion with 1 aluminum ion. So 2 of the sodium ion spaces will be empty, will be vacant. So aluminum 3 plus ion will create 2 vacancy per ion. Strontium is being creating 1 vacancy per ion. If I dope it with potassium ion, potassium is having the same valency as Na plus. So potassium would not be creating any vacancy because 1 Na plus will be removed, and instead of this Na plus, there will be presence of K plus ion. So on the basis of impurity charge and other things, the number of vacancy can be changed. The number of vacancy can be changed. Now from here, we are seeing for the non-stoichiometric defect. So the first defect is metal excess defect. What happens in metal excess defect? Suppose we again have a crystal of NaCl. We have a crystal of NaCl in which Na and Cl atoms are arranged. And let's say metal excess means, let's say 1 Cl ion is moved away. 1 Cl ion is lost in the form of Cl2 gas. Due to some external factor, Cl negative ion is being lost as Cl2 gas. And that Cl minus has left its electron behind. So now we can see only Cl minus is going. Na plus is still the same. So we are having more Na plus than the Cl minus. And that's why the defect is called as metal excess defect, where metal is present in excess and non-metal is deficient. Non-metal has removed from the lattice. Now this is changing the stoichiometry. So that's why this defect is called as non-stoichiometric defect. This defect is called as non-stoichiometric defect, first thing. Second thing, this electron is present here. And this electron is called as F center. F center because it produces 3 effects. First, it rises the conductivity. It increases the conductivity as electron is small. It can move freely in the lattice, and the free movement of charge will produce conductivity. Second, it makes the particle or solid paramagnetic. We will study about the magnetic property in the upcoming section. That means this unpaired electron makes the molecule paramagnetic. And third, due to this paramagnetic electron, the solid show color. It absorbs and emits photons in visible region. In visible region. For example, when LiCl has such defect, it is showing pink color. NaCl is having such defect, it is showing yellow color. Due to this F center or metal excess defect, KCl becomes lilac. KCl becomes lilac due to this metal excess defect, and ZnO, zinc oxide, becomes yellow again due to this metal excess defect. In all of these solid, anion, Cl or oxide ion are lost or less amount have in the lattice. They have less amount in the lattice. So this is the effect of metal excess defect on a solid lattice due to this presence of F center, electron center, the effect on conductivity, the magnetic behavior and the color. Similar to this metal excess, we have another defect which is called as metal deficiency defect. First of thing is that this is usually shown by D and F block metal. You would understand shortly why I am saying that D and F block metal usually show metal deficiency defects, sometime P block metal, but never S block metal. Why I am saying this? First, understand the defect. Suppose we have iron oxide, ferrous oxide. Ferrous oxide. A regular crystal of ferrous oxide is there. And suppose due to some reason one of the ferrous oxide is having less iron atom. Due to some reason one of the Fe2 plus ion is lost. Now we are losing 2 positive charge, and that 2 positive charge must be balanced. So some of the iron 2 plus are oxidized into iron 3 plus. Some of the iron 2 plus are oxidized into iron 3 plus in order to balance the shortcoming plus 2 charge. The plus 2 charge that we have lost here, in order to balance that charge, some of the iron are changed into iron 3 plus. That's why I said metal of D and F block usually show this defect, because these metal can show variable oxidation state, and without variability in oxidation effect, this defect would not be possible. This defect would not be possible. And now this lattice is having metal in less amount. That's why this defect is called as metal deficiency defect. This defect is also an example of non-stoichiometric defect. This is also an example of non-stoichiometric defect. Because here also the ratio of iron and oxygen have been changed. The iron are less as expected. Now let's see a question based on the metal deficiency defect. You can see in this question nickel is being in fraction. The fraction represents non-stoichiometric ratio. So the formula of nickel oxide is nickel 0.98 oxygen. The crystal contains nickel 2 plus and nickel 3 plus. Nickel is present in 2 different variable state, similar to this iron case. We have to find the fraction of nickel. Existing as nickel 2 plus ion in the crystal. So now let's solve the question. And remember, the defect, any defect, whether it is stoichiometric, non-stoichiometric, impurity, any defect does not change the electrical neutrality. So I can say that nickel 0.98 oxygen will still be neutral. And this is the fundamental principle for solving this question, neutrality. For simplicity, I assume 100 nickel 0.98 oxygen molecule. You can take it as 1, you can take it as 10, you can take it any number whichever you want to take. So I can assume that out of these 100, according to stoichiometry, 100 into 0.98, 98 nickel atom are there and 100 oxygen atom are there, because the formula is 0.981. So 100 into 0.98, 98 nickel atom, and 100 into 100 oxygen atom. This nickel is in 2 forms, so I can assume X atom to be in 2 plus and remaining 98 minus X atom to be in 3 plus. And this oxygen is only in 1 form, so all these 100 oxygen will be oxide ion, oxygen 2 minus. Now I will use the concept of neutrality, that all of these positive charge plus all of these negative charge, the total summation will be neutral, that means 0. So twice of X from this plus 3 times of 98 minus X, 3 times of 98 minus X is equal to 200. 100 into minus 2. The net charge should be 0, or the net positive magnitude should be equal to net negative magnitude. So from here we will get 294 minus 3x is equal to 200, and plus 2x is there. So x will come out to be 94. So from here I can easily find that there are 94 nickel 2 plus ion out of 98 nickel atom. Out of 98 nickel atom, we have only 94 atom as nickel 2 plus ion, and the remaining 4 will be of nickel 3 plus. But we have to find the fraction of nickel 2 plus. The fraction of nickel 2 plus, that will be number of nickel 2 plus, that is 94, divided by total multiplied by 100. So this will be approximately 96%, or in fraction this will be approximately 0.96. 0.96. This is the option B. So that's how we solve the question based on metal deficiency defect by using the concept of electrical neutrality. Another question is there. If NaCl is doped with 10 to the power minus 4 mole percent of SrCl2, the concentration of cationic vacancies is. We have to find here the concentration of cationic vacancies. If I see in the option, all the options are in mole inverse. What does that mean? What does this mean? Mole inverse. That means we have to represent the concentration in number of vacancy per mole. Then only the unit will be mole inverse. So now I am going to find the vacancy per mole. How we can find? Let's see. Mole percent means 100 mole of NaCl. 100 mole of NaCl will have 10 to the power minus 4 mole of SrCl2. Correct? If NaCl is doped with 10 to the power minus 4 mole percent, that means 100 mole of NaCl will have 10 to the power minus 4 mole of SrCl2. I can say that 1 mole of NaCl will have 10 to the power minus 6 mole of SrCl2. I have divided both sides by 100. I can also say 10 to the power minus 6 mole of strontium ion will be there. And now, as I have said earlier, that each strontium ion will replace 2 sodium ion. One space it will occupy by itself, and in the another space there will be a vacancy. So each strontium ion will create one cationic vacancy. So that means 10 to the power minus 6 mole of cationic vacancies will be there. 10 to the power minus 6 mole of cationic vacancies will be there, because each strontium ion is creating 2 spaces. One space is being occupied and the other space is empty. Other space is vacancy. So in terms of Avogadro number, I can say that 10 to the power minus 6 into 6.022 into 10 to the power 23 number of cationic vacancies will be there. This much of vacancies will be there. And this is our result, that we are having 6.02 into 10 to the power 23 minus 6, that will be 17 cationic vacancies per mole of NaCl. And that will become the concentration of cationic vacancies. So that's how the impurity defect create cationic vacancies. Now let's talk about the magnetic properties of solid. Why solid have magnetism? Similar to the electron, that whenever an electron is moving, it is creating some current, and due to that current some magnetic properties are being created. So we define the solids into 3 categories. First is diamagnetic, another is paramagnetic, and the third one is domain magnetic. Those substances which have magnetism due to domain. Now what's happened in diamagnetic substance? First of all, diamagnetic substance have all electrons as paired electrons. That is, they have 0 unpaired electron. Second, because all electrons are paired, so they are producing magnetic effect in opposite direction. So as a result, the whole magnetic properties of solid is being cancelled out due to the pairing of electron. So that's why they do not have any self-magnetism. But if they are placed in external magnetic field, they experience a weak repulsion. they experience a weak repulsions. Why they are weakly repelled? Because they have net zero magnetism. So in terms of external field, they get an induced magnetic field of opposite direction. And that's why such substances, diamagnetic nature substances, are experiencing weakly repulsion in external magnetic field. And also, we can calculate the spin only magnetic moment, which is under root n plus 2 Bohr magnetron, where n is number of unpaired electrons, and number of unpaired electron is 0 in diamagnetic. So this will be 0 for diamagnetic, 0 for diamagnetic substance like nitrogen gas, CO2 gas, and some other molecules. Now the second thing is paramagnetic substance. What are the paramagnetic substances? So they have, first thing, they have some unpaired electrons. Due to these unpaired electrons, they experience weak attraction. These are attracted in external magnetic field. Third thing, we can also find the mu magnetic moment of these substances by using the formula under root n plus 2 Bohr magnetron. For example, if I take a paramagnetic molecule as oxygen, this is a very important example of paramagnetic molecule because this can be explained only with the help of molecular orbital theory. So oxygen has only 2 unpaired electrons. Oxygen molecule has 2 unpaired electrons, and that's why its magnetic moment will become under root 2 times of 2 plus 2, that is 4 into 2, yani ki under root 8 Bohr magnetron, under root 8 or 1.7 Bohr magnetron. So that's how we find the magnetic moment for a paramagnetic substance. And now remember, when these atoms have some unpaired electron, then these paramagnetic atoms are having a magnetic field of themselves. Each individual atom is having a magnetic field of themselves. And sometimes such atoms are attached, such atoms are combined together to form a bigger magnetic atom. One atom and many atom like this having magnetic field in same direction are combined together to form a bigger region of atoms having net magnetic field. And such regions are called as domains. So domains are basically formed in paramagnetic material when 2 or more atoms are attached together having magnetism in parallel direction. And this produces a strong effect because many magnetic fields are being added. Such regions are called as domains. And now what happens if such material are placed, such materials having domains are placed in external field, then 3 cases might occur. One is all domains, all the neighboring domains are arranged in single direction. So that produces a very strong attraction effect. Second case is alternatively equal amount of domains are parallel and anti-parallel. So this has no net effect because each domain are being cancelled out by their pairing domain. So these have no net effect. And the third thing that occurs is that some of the domains are parallel and some of the domains which is less in number anti-parallel. So some of the anti-parallel cancel out the parallel, but some of the parallel domains are left out. So they also show weak attraction. So on the basis of domain, material can be of further three types. One is having a strong attraction. This is called as ferromagnetic. This is called as ferromagnetic. Like iron, cobalt, chromium के oxides and other. Second is having no net effect, that all of the magnetic effect is cancelled out. Such are called as anti-ferromagnetic. Anti-ferromagnetic. The most important example for this is MnO, which has been asked in various exams. And the third is weak attraction. Some of the domains are cancelled out. Such are called as ferrimagnetic. Such are called as ferrimagnetic. So these are the three types of material which are on the basis of domain, and ferrimagnetic has a common example of Fe3O4 or other molecules. So these examples are very important, and these materials are also very important because these material can be used to create permanent magnet because they are having strong and powerful attraction. So ferromagnetic can be used to create permanent magnet. And all of these materials are somewhat formed from paramagnetic material. That if we heat any of these material, the domain will be broken, and if domain is broken, then the material will be again converted into paramagnetic material. Paramagnetic material. And the temperature at which this conversion occurs, that temperature is called as Curie temperature. That temperature is called as Curie temperature. The temperature at which when domains are heated and the domains are being broken and the material converts into paramagnetic material. Such a temperature are called as Curie temperature. Now we are moving to the last section of chapter, which is electrical properties of solid. Now on the basis of conductivity, we are two type of solid. We are having two type of solid mainly, conductor and insulator. Conductor are those which can conduct electricity due to presence of free charges, mostly free electrons, but it can be free ions as well. So the conductor are those substances which can conduct electricity due to free charges. It could be electron, it could be ion. And insulator are those substances which cannot conduct electricity due to absence of free charges. And in between those conductor and insulator, we have some material which have conductivity in between these two. And those materials are called as semiconductors. Semiconductors. So usually metals have free electrons. And that's why metals are good conductor. Metals are supposed to be having free electrons. Usually non-metals are insulator because they do not have free electrons. And metalloids like germanium, silicon, they are falling into the category of semiconductor. So we use band theory in order to explain conductors and non-conductors and insulators. Band is basically collection of energy. Band is basically collection of energy of electrons into various shells, subshells, orbitals. So we have two type of band. One is called as valence band. And another is called as conduction band. Now if the electron is present, then the position of electron is in valence band. Electron is present in valence band, but if that electron can go into conduction band, it can become free, and it can cause conductivity. So for conductors, these valence band and conduction band are usually overlapped. So it is very easy for electron to move from valence band to conduction band, and that's why they behave as conductors. For semiconductor, there is a little bit energy gap 0.7 electron volt, 1.1 electron volt, like that. There is a little bit energy gap between conduction band and valence band, and electrons require some extra help, some additional help in order to move from valence band to conduction band. And that's why they become semiconductor or conductors with weak conductivity. And in case of insulator, insulators are quite different. So in case of insulator, the energy gap is forbidden. The energy gap is forbidden. Now what does this forbidden means? This means that it is not possible. It is not possible for any method for insulator to give this amount of energy which is required for jump of valence band electron to conduction band. Although it may be possible that the non-metal or the insulator will melt down, or it won't absorb such energy, and due to any reason the energy absorption of this gap is not possible, and such substance becomes insulators. Such substance become insulators. So that's how, on the basis of band theory, we explain about the conduction band, valence band, and on the basis of these band we explain about the conductive material, the insulating material, and the semiconductor material. For example, most of the metals are conductors, most of the non-metals are insulators, and metalloids are semiconductors. Now let's see this question. The appearance of color in solid alkali metal halides is generally due to. So this question is right from the memory lane. This question is right from the memory lane. That F center causes metal excess defect which results in formation of color in alkali metal solid. So the correct answer will be F center. Another question we have, formula of nickel oxide that we have already solved. It will be 0.96. It will be 0.96. So that's all for this today's chapter of solid state. The chapter is quite over. You must revise this chapter once again. Try to do some previous year questions, some extra module work, and some extra questions. The more you visualize this chapter, the more you try to imagine the chapter's concept, the chapter becomes too easy. The chapter becomes too easy. So that's all for today, beta. We will meet again with the next chapter for the next chemistry class. Hope you have a good day. Thanks a lot.